After c4, the English opening is on the board. Black goes on with e5, and in this video we're going to go through the early fianchetto. Although, to be fair, everything in English opening is always going to transpose. The knights are always going to go there to f3 and c3, the bishop will go in g2, and it's always going to happen, at least most of the times. So, to be fair, the order of the moves doesn't really matter too much. Black goes on with knight f6, and after bishop to g2, White's intention is to use the c pawn to take in d5, we all know that. And fun enough, we're going to have to let that happen. So we're giving White the privilege of giving away the c-pawn for the d-pawn, but we get to place a knight in the center. And the thing is that Black's center is better than White's. That's the downside of playing the English opening. The upside will be that the White player is often going to be more prepared than you are, because no one really studies what to do against the English. So now, after knight f3, Black goes on with knight c6. And now we need to start exploring all of the possible options. The first move we're going to go through is this move, which I find so annoying. Well, I used to find so annoying that I decided to start my video with this. Queen to b3 early enough. The idea is that now the white player is attacking the pawn in e5, because as soon as that happens, there's going to be double attack over the knight. And you're down a pawn, a central pawn. So don't fall for that. After queen b3, you play e4, immediately attacking the knight. Two options we're going to look at. Well, knight d4 is not possible because you can take it. Knight d5, you can also take it. So after knight g1 or knight to h4, there will be some lines. After knight to h4, now there's an attack on the pawn in e4 with the bishop. We ignore that because we play knight d to b4, and the game is already compromised for white for the simple reason that we're planning to play knight d4 with an attack on the queen. The queen can't take the knight because it's defended by the bishop. And so let's say, for example, if white plays e3 to stop us from playing the deadly knight d4, we're going to play knight d3 with check. And the game is compromised because if the king moves, let's say, for example, to f1, then we can win a free bishop. If instead the king goes to d1, then you can play knight f2, winning the rook. Winning the exchange. So if the king plays king to e2, if the king goes to e2, still, at this point, the position is already evaluated -5 or something like that. You go on with bishop g4, check. The only move not to lose a piece will be f3, but then you play bishop to e6 with an attack on the queen. And the idea for black is to play knight e5 with the threat of bishop c4. So that's going to happen no matter what. If queen goes b7 with an attack on the knight, simply play knight e5. And now there's no much to do for white. If white, let's say, takes the pawn, looks like it's relieving a little bit of the problems. Potentially might play d3, d4, maybe get the knight back to f3. The king is safe. You play rook b8, and now this is a forcing move. You can't take the knight because of the knight, can't take the pawn because of the knight. The only move will be queen a6, but then bishop c4 wins the queen. So in this position, the best move for white, according to the engine, is king to f2. But black still goes on with rook to b8. And after queen a6, only move. And now knight d3 check. The white king cannot go on the file up because then the knight will be able to win the bishop. The rook has to keep defending the bishop. So if king moves, well, the king will have to move to e2 again. Rook to b6. And the queen is trapped. So let's make a recap. g2 and then knight f6, bishop g2. All of these moves are going to happen anyway. d5. Gave white the possibility to take with the c-pawn. We don't care because we're going to improve the position of the knight. Knight f3, knight c6. And we're looking at the variation queen b3 just to start with. Okay, immediately attack the knight. The knight going to h4 is met by knight d to b4. We're already planning to play knight d4 and that cannot be stopped. So after white's best attempt will be to win a pawn and also to put more defense over c2, because if you think about it, the idea here was to play knight d4 also with the threat of both knights attacking c2 and trapping the rook and win material. So in this position, after bishop takes, the bishop's defending c2. How are we going to react to that? Okay, well, knight d4 is coming anyway. The queen will have to move. And by the way, going all the way back with the queen is pointless because f5 wins the game for black. When the bishop takes, you can take back, and after those pieces are removed, then you're going to be up material. And the square c2 will also be free. If white takes with the knight, then simply takes with the bishop. Bishop takes back. And now queen to d5, attacking the bishop and the rook. Black is winning material and the position is fantastic. e4 doesn't work to stop all of the threats because of queen to c4, stopping the king from castling and playing knight c2 no matter what. White cannot stop the knight c2 infiltration because, well, first of all, knight a3 is not enough. You got too much attack over there. So yeah, knight b to c2 will do the job and win a lot of material. So in this position, after knight to d4, if queen goes to f3, still f5 comes. And we're not going to look at take because we have two defenders over there. The knight in b4 is safely defended by our bishop. We don't have to worry. What happens after bishop to d3? The bishop couldn't go to c2. Obviously, we got two attackers. So after bishop to d3, how do we take this? The queen in c3, unlike before in d1, the queen now is safeguarding the integrity of the pawn structure. The queen is defending the bishop. How do we go on? g5, attacking the knight, and the knight will have to move. There's no point in going to f3 because you can just take it. And when it means check, so after the pawn takes back, you're going to have two attackers over this square. Be careful to your rook being attacked by the queen, but you could take the bishop with check. So in this position, white's best move is, white's only move is knight to g2. So black continues with a5, supporting the knight with the pawn, also because we're planning to potentially play bishop to g7. It's an excellent square to be, threatening discover attacks. It's a fantastic position to play. The knight cannot be kicked out with a3, by the way, because simply knight takes bishop with check, and after queen takes b6, best move by white. The idea is to play bishop a6. It's unstoppable. White can't move a thing. Position evaluated as if black was up two pieces or something like that, as far as I remember. So let's go down a minute. So in this position, a3 doesn't work. What happens after the quiet castle? Well, black goes on, obviously, with bishop g7. Million threats going on. White's best move, according to the engine, is rook to e1, giving up the knight f3 idea, which is check, and we're supposed to pick up the queen, for the simple reason that after knight f3, pawn takes knight comes with check. We're actually not winning the queen. If anything, we're just helping white with the development. Let's be careful here. Our move is going to be king to f8. This is the best move. And now, yes, we're threatening knight f3, winning move. White's best move is queen to c5, check. Queen to d6 is best for black. It's very surprising because white now will have the possibility to remove our initiative by taking the queen and also isolating our pawn in the center. White's best move is exactly that, but after taking back, we're still winning. We have a winning advantage because we can take the bishop in d3 and then knight c2 forks the two rooks. We are going to win material no matter what. And by the way, that's unstoppable because either way, we also threaten knight takes d3, winning a bishop. When the pawn takes back, knight f3 is a fork, wins the exchange. We have the bishop pair and we're going to win the endgame. So let's say, for example, knight a3, then simply take the bishop, pawn takes, and then knight f3. So from the start, let's look at this line. That's another variation now. Knight f6, bishop g2, d5, pawn takes, knight takes. And after knight f3, knight c6. So we're looking at the move queen b3. This is met with e4, as mentioned already. What happens after knight to g1? This is actually still theory. It's super annoying when they play that move. It's not supposed to be good. It isn't good. But let's see what to do. It's very similar. Knight d to b4. Same stuff. We're going to play knight to d4. That's what we want to do. So as you can tell, it doesn't change much. Knight to d3, same threat. e3 cannot be played in order to stop that from happening because it's basically the same scenario as before, except the knight is in g1 except c4, h4. So here, what happens after bishop takes? Nothing changes. Knight d4, same threats, and after queen to d1, f5. So very thematic moves. Now you know exactly how to deal against the queen b3 variation of the English. Let's look at this variation this time though. It's something I've also encountered. White plays e3 now. The idea is that we take the bishop, but white takes one of these two tremendously strong knights. And we get a pawn isolated in the center. It's not supposed to be very good. White's got an idea of playing queen h5 afterward. This is not good, so we have to be very careful. This is dangerous, but it should still be fine. Yes, indeed, we take the bishop, believe it or not, after giving up away the knight. Knight to d3 comes, check. And after king moves, queen to d4, threatening checkmate. And yeah, I'm not going to say that this checkmate is unstoppable, but it surely wins a lot of material. You can't really develop the queen whilst protecting f2 because knight will take the bishop for free. You also cannot move the queen to e1 because of the knight. You also cannot move the knight to h3 to protect f2 because the bishop is attacking that square. The light square bishop is undevelopable and the knight can't do anything.